This is a HeadGum podcast.
He has the whole burden of like, I'm a black director. Do I have to cast black actors? Because it's like, I'm black, and as a black person, people always expect you to give back. You know, so it's like for you guys, I mean, Key and Peele is like a big thing, and like you guys reached outside of just like an urban, window. So it's like you guys have like white people watching. You guys have like you guys have everybody. So it's like that burden that Spike Lee might have. I feel like you guys probably will have it as well.
Well, it's interesting. We had somebody talk to us about this. Jordan and I are developing a. Do you guys ever watch our two alter ego characters, Van Damian and Mike?
Oh my God,
who do the vlogs.
Yeah.
They do the vlogs.
Like comment on the videos.
And comment on the videos and how they can be funnier. And they have the really kind of puerile sophomore. So those two guys, we're developing an animated piece where they're in junior high.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
But they're in junior high in present day. So the way that you become popular in school is to have a YouTube channel and be
vlog.
It's like the beginning of their lives. It's their origin story. So they're waiting for they're waiting for the pilot script from us at Comedy Central. But anyway, the guy who's an animation guy, he's an animation expert, and his name's Rodney, and I can't remember his last name. His last name is escaping me at this moment. But he's been working with Jordan on the piece a lot. It's something Jordan's really passionate about. Jordan's a big horror fan. He's also a big animation fan. Excuse me. And he said, I don't understand what y'all did. Like, y'all crossed over first. Like, how did you? How were you mainstream first? And I've tried to put that to my mind. Like, what's the answer to that question?
Right.
I think a lot of it is. When we're writing sketches, we're always going for the human element first, and then we put a black filter over it.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll hit it from a classical comedy point of view. I mean, if you think about, if you guys are fans, so when I mention these characters, Cedric and Levi. Cedric is the one who's like, "Where'd my dookie go?" Right, and his friend Levi is just always fed up with him because he's high and saying stupid, inane things. That's just Laurel and Hardy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's Laurel and Hardy, and we happen to live in the hood. But it's really Laurel and Hardy in the hood.
Right.
We're really respecting the comedic roots. It's not a Hollywood pitch where you're saying it's Laurel and Hardy in the hood.
But in the hood, right.
And so let's take everything that made Laurel and Hardy work and let's change that too. Don't change that part.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the part that's working. Don't
Right.
change the Ralph Cramden, Ed Norton part.
Right. Yeah.
That's just comedy.
Right.
I could be green and it wouldn't matter. And the Martians would think it was funny too because this is one guy and this is another guy who's frustrated by him all the time and put upon by his stupid schemes.
Right.
That's just comedy. It's been comedy since Aristophanes. So the reason we crossed over is because we're telling human stories first and putting a black or a ethnic filter on top of it second.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Even
so that everyone can enjoy the human experience of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to get that.
No, that's great. That's great. I'm glad I came out.
So the popularity, and the thing is, Jordan and I are just comedy students. We didn't know any other way to make it. We weren't trying to become super famous. It's like, do we think this is funny? Let's do it.
Yeah.
And then New Line Cinema. So in this particular case with Keanu, it wasn't difficult because New Line came to us clamoring for for Keanu.
New Line Cinema.
And New Line said, let's do it.
About to talk about a sponsor today. Because this podcast is sponsored.
Straight up.
Because we official.
We official. And you know what? How can you get more official than Squarespace.com?
You can't.
I mean, you can't get seen without a website.
You sure can't.
Let me tell you right now. This is for real. Listen to me. If you don't have a website, your business doesn't exist.
Nope.
It's true. It's true.
If you don't have a website, if you an actor and I can't find you on your own website,
you don't exist.
You don't exist to me. Gerard knows that. Gerard, tell him.
Listen, when I'm like at work, because sometimes I help find talent, and I'm like, hey, here's this new person I want you to look at, boss. A boss is like, oh, what's their website? They don't have a website.
They don't
exist. You lost a job.
Now listen. Now look. I know sometimes people make excuses. I don't know how to build a website. I don't know what I don't know what all that stuff is. That old stuff. You know what I'm saying? But listen, Squarespace.com is easy.
How easy?
It's so easy. You do not need to know how to code.
Oh, I don't know how to code at all.
I don't have to know how to code.
They have simple drag and drop options. Listen, I built my website, johnbraylock.com,
What?
with Squarespace.
Stop it.
And let me tell you, it looks professional.
It does.
as
It does.
hell.
I've been to that website.
It looks really good.
Thank
I've
you.
been to that website.
Thank
It's
you.
very
Really good.
professional.
Thank
Looks
you,
really
James.
good.
James III, you got a website?
I sure do.
Oh, snap. What you use to build that joint?
You know I use that Squarespace.
Yo, he used that Squarespace.
man.
JamesThirdComedy.com. That's from Squarespace, son.
JamesThirdComedy.com.
James Third Comedy, son.
It's not just trusted by us, it's trusted by millions of people.
Right.
Some of the biggest businesses in the world use Squarespace.com. This ain't no joke.
Listen, man, if you want to be seen, get you a goddamn website.
Yo, it starts at $8 a month.
$8 a month.
That's a frappuccino.
Not only that, you can get a free domain if you sign up for a year.
I'm sorry, that's one Frappuccino, though.
I mean, if you get if you get the big size, like the
It's true.
If you get like the big gulp size, the venti,
and it's a
Venti.
free domain if you sign up for a year.
For a year.
Oh, man.
You know how you do that?
What?
Yo, just go to squarespace.com, enter the offer code JUMP.
Hey, if y'all didn't peep it, that's our offer code.
Our offer code is JUMP.
Whoa, these black men got an offer code.
Yo, 10% off your first purchase.
Man, that's a
do
slice of pizza.
That's
Start your
What?
free trial today. No credit card required at squarespace.com.
Cool, because that means some people won't have good credit, so that means they can just go buy.
Yo, I got terrible credit, but I got a Squarespace website.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean?
You sign up for Squarespace. Make sure to use the offer code JUMP.
Jump.
You got to support your brothers, all right?
JUMP.
You know we talking about Squarespace. Build it beautiful. Let's get to that show.
Jonathan Braylock, James the Third, Drum Milligan.
What more can I say? You know what it is. Black men can jump.
Black actors, man. Black actors. All right.
Here he is, guys.
Yo, I can't stop smiling right now.
Why
bro.
can't you stop smiling?
I mean, because we have a guest.
we have
in
a
the house.
guest. We
But
have
people
a
won't
guest.
even believe the guest
Yes.
we got.
This is Black Men Can't Jump in Hollywood. All right. For those of you who don't know,
Yes.
who might be listening for the first time, we review the films of leading black actors, and then we talk about it in the context of Hollywood. Why they so few? Why did I do a weird Asian?
Why they so few?
Why-
Also,
Why are
it
there
has to be
so
a studio.
few?
It has to be a
Has
lead
to be a
actor in a
major studio film.
Not no indies. We're not doing no indie flicks.
We love
here.
indie films. We have nothing against indie films. It's just that for the context of this
Yes.
this problem that we're trying to address, we're not looking at indie films.
Braylock pulled off a miracle, y'all, this week.
well,
I don't know
alright,
how
that's
he
not a
did it.
miracle.
I don't know how he did it. But Braylock got us a guest today.
I just asked.
Hey, that's a miracle.
God damn it.
What you say? How'd you say
Why
it?
is that word
How'd you
so
say
hard
it?
for black
How'd you
us?
say it?
Joining us.
Time out.
Asked.
How'd you say it? How you say it?
Asked.
Okay, that
This
was
is
good.
I'm reliving my childhood. White
So
suburban town. Which, did you just say axe? Jonathan said axe. Okay, sorry.
Joining us.
Joining us today. Don't do a drum roll.
I can't do a drum roll. Can I
It's Keegan-Michael Key.
Keegan-Michael Key. Hello. You didn't do the drum roll, but you did bionic sound.
We did bionic sound.
So I'm bionic Keegan-Michael
right.
Key. I like it. Just for the listeners, I came in here in slow motion like Steve
Yes,
Austin.
you did.
If you know who Steve Austin is, you're my age.
I know who Steve Austin is.
$6 million man. You thought
I thought Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I knew it. He said, I know who Steve Austin, $6 million man.
Okay, now I know what y'all talking about, but I thought Stone Cold
Steve Austin.
Oh, snap.
You mean foil to the Rock? Dwayne the Rock Johnson?
Okay, guys, I made a
You
mistake.
guys, it's fantastic to be here. Am I your
Yeah,
first
thank you.
guest? Am I your
You are our second
You're our
guest.
second
second guest? Okay.
You're our first
here.
male guest.
First
I'm
male
outta here.
guest.
I'm out of here.
No. We got water and stuff.
Oh,
for-
no, yeah.
Yeah, don't leave.
I'm really interested in this stuff.
yeah, we have some stuff.
No, this is great.
Yes,
I'm
and-
so happy to be here. I really am happy to be here. I think this is such a fascinating podcast, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. And we're doing a fantastic film. We're doing In the Heat of the Night.
In the heat of the night.
Starring Sidney Poitier.
Sydney,
me
Mr.
Tibbs.
they call me Mr.
Call
Tibbs.
me Mr. Tibbs. Yeah, and I, you and I talked about it, Braylock,
Yeah.
about like, hey, let's go back and see what it's like to go back to kind of when people were making films
Exactly.
at a time when we knew there was a huge disparity
Right.
between certain parts of certain
Yes.
different types of Americans, but at the same time, how much has changed?
Yes.
How much hasn't changed? And what do we see in the movie? What do we not see in the movie?
Yep.
That's the interesting thing is watching a movie that's made in a certain era. It's like
Right.
watching any movies that are made, and I may say a disparaging term right now, just to make a point.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the thing that'll get cut out on Twitter when they say I'm a homophobe.
Right,
They'll cut out all the context. Is that I remember growing up because I'm in my 40s, so I remember growing up in the 80s, and I didn't think about it until I got older. But in movies, if you were scared or squeamish or pusillanimous in any way, people would say, "What are you, a faggot?"
Right.
Yeah.
And then now you can't fathom
People- right.
hearing that word
So true.
randomly used. You're like, "What?"
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Yeah.
I said it. I mean, when I was growing up in high school, people use that word all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I remember it was so quick. I kind of grew up in Jersey a little bit, and then came to NYU,
Right.
and my roommate was gay, and I remember watching something, and because we used to say gay as in like stupid, right?
that's so gay.
And so
Yeah,
like,
so gay.
and so I remember watching something on TV. He was there in the room. We're both watching, and I laughed, and I was like, "That's so
And you
dumb."
felt it.
And
You
I
stopped
stopped
yourself.
myself, and I was like, "Holy crap!" And I remember in that moment, it was pretty awesome. But somehow in that moment, I was like, "I'm gonna delete this from my vocabulary now." Like,
and so
it's-
that certainly in that context.
Yeah.
And so now what we're dealing with the movie that was made in 1967,
Exactly.
directed by Norman Jewison, who's a really storied director, and also and produced by the Mirish brothers.
Right.
And the Mirish brothers also they did a lot of swinging movies in the 60s. They did the Pink Panther movies and stuff, which I'm a big fan of as a comedian. And
Great.
what's so interesting is what does it mean to watch a movie like this in that context at that time? Because, you think about the civil rights workers that had gone down during the civil rights era and were killed in Mississippi.
Exactly. Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff's chronicled in movies like Mississippi Burning,
Right.
And it was really cutting edge for its time.
1967.
It
just
was
for the-
nominated for 5 Oscars, right?
and
It
won
Best
Best Picture.
And one Best Picture for
Best
that
Picture.
year.
and one Best Actor. Wasn't Sidney Poitier, but
Rod Steiger for Best
He won
Act.
Best Actor?
No,
Yeah,
let me ask you this.
he did.
He won Best Actor.
Yes.
And that's what's interesting is that's what we're saying is
Right.
that in the movie, the billing
Right.
is Poitier
Poitier.
first, then Steiger,
Yeah.
but Steiger was nominated for an acting award, not
Yeah.
a supporting actor
Yeah.
award.
And he won.
And he won. And the other thing is, first of all, Rod Steiger is excellent in the film.
Right.
But the interesting thing is, I'm trying to think: is there a preponderance of these movies? Maybe there is. Maybe there's not. In this particular case, the character of Virgil Tibbs. Do we think he's changed? Do we think that he grows or evolves
Does he
in
have a
any way?
character arc?
And the thing is, also in that time, in that era, and even today, does he have to?
Right.
Is the question. Whereas Rod Steiger's character has a change of heart by the end of the movie, and we very often
true.
we define a protagonist by the person who begins in one place and ends in a different place at the end of the movie.
Chris Rock has a good thing, and then I'm probably going to misquote it. This year, January, after Top 5 came out,
Right.
he was talking about just what's happening in the world. And he was like, people keep saying black people, like things are changing. He's like, no, black folk have always been good people. He was like, now white people are starting to change.
They're
It's not-
recognizing
like they're
it. Right.
recognizing, like we aren't changing. Like for instance, in The Heat of the Night, Sidney Poitier was a good man from the beginning of the movie. He didn't need to change.
Yes, exactly. Right. Okay, that's good. No, dry. That's
he
a
didn't
nice.
need to. So it's like
Real quick, I just want to lay down the groundwork for Sidney Poitier, just for people who might not know who he is. I mean,
That's
it's
true. No,
very
there can be
possible.
listeners who don't know who he is and
So-
how powerful his career
Yeah,
has been.
and he at this time, like 1967, this was his he was already
At the zenith.
He was
He's
at
at
the
the zenith.
So he already won an Oscar. He won an Oscar for Lilies of the Field. He was nominated like a couple years before for the Defiant Ones. He was the only leading black man in like major motion pictures.
Absolutely.
He was it. Like that's it. Like we talk about a lot, like when we do films, like who else was like up for this role. There was nobody else. It was him, and that was it.
Right. Right.
But he also got some slack for and
flack.
Flack.
Yeah, flack. Yeah.
Did I combine slack?
yeah, but you
No, they
Flack.
didn't. They did not give him
They
slack.
didn't give him
no
slack.
slack.
They gave him
They gave
no
him
slack.
slack.
They gave him no
Flack.
slack on that. No slack.
They gave him flack for being actually what you said, which was all of his characters were very upstanding. Like it was like he was never able to have more complexity like some of these other characters in the films that he was in with, who like had like some bad sides or whatever. It's like he had to be the
like
upstanding.
in Lilies in the Field and,
Right.
and Patch of Blue. There was even more nuance,
Yes.
And he was struggling with things. And the movie the movie he made the very next year, which is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner,
Right.
And so there's more sense of like it can't just be outrage, but this was the '60s. That's what we were feeling,
Right.
So that he was that symbol for us, but
Right.
you still don't want a 2-dimensional character. You want a 3-dimensional
Exactly.
character. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. So let's get into it. I mean, first of all, what were the initial? I mean, does everybody
you feel
love this
about
movie?
it? Yeah,
Yeah,
James, how you feel?
It was my second time seeing it, and I loved it the second time, same as the first.
yeah.
Did anything strike you, James? Anything that was different?
I mean,
you're, when was the first time you saw it?
first time I saw, I was in high school.
And so is that 10 years ago? Is that
Oh, more.
is high school
Thank
15? No, but I'm
you.
asking. Is
No, I
is
think it was what 20?
No, you're the same age as I am.
15 years ago?
now, yeah.
Yeah, because I just wonder, as we grow and as we look at our society, was there anything that struck you differently?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think what struck me differently this time was just being able to. I was able to see this time that he's a guy trying to like figure something out, but like still the thing that's in his way is like society. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like
true.
It wasn't like, oh, he has a clear person that's standing in his way. It's like, no, it's the world around him that he's.
It's a real fish out of water story.
Yeah.
It's the perfect fish out of water story.
I wrote down like the main conflict of this movie is racism.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the
That's the
conflict.
thing. Yeah, I wrote
Like,
that down
it's
too.
even more so than the
Than the
actual
mystery-
murder.
than the mystery
than
of trying to
mystery of the
figure
murder.
out the
Right.
murder,
It was
yeah.
just like what's keeping these characters from coming together? Oh, just racism.
I mean, this could have been a buddy cop movie.
Right,
Yeah,
it could have
absolutely,
been,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is what they turned the TV show into,
Into,
right?
right,
yeah.
Because they
Yeah.
kind of they removed a little bit of the racism, like the sorry, what's the cop's name? What's the chief's name?
Gillespie, yeah.
His character in the TV show when that came out in the 80s or late 80s, I think.
Yeah, late
early
80s into the 90s, yeah.
He wasn't like really racist anymore. Like he
Yeah.
was like trying to and he was like trying to fix the race problem, kind of.
And I never watched that show. So is the premise? It's not Virgil who comes back.
It is. I think it is Virgil. It's just
It
that
is Virgil.
It is
It is
Virgil.
Virgil.
And he but then he joined. Like he comes back for his mother. And,
Oh,
like,
that's
he
what it is. It might be
joins-
his mother's
Yeah.
getting older. She's
Right.
infirm or
Exactly.
something like that, and he wants to live down there.
Yeah, and then Gillespie kind of like convinces him to just
Help
join
out.
the force.
Yeah, help out.
Yeah.
What about you, Bray?
That's what this is the first time I saw this movie, and it's incredible. I'm like I'd seen Sidney Poitier films before. I saw Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and I saw A Raisin in the Sun, but I never saw this movie, and this movie was like, I was like, oh man, this movie's like, it's really engaging. Like the mystery, the noir, like film kind of noir kind of it was really great and excellent to me. It started off with Ray Charles' song, which I was like,
right?
this is
Yeah,
dope. Yo, Ray Charles, like awesome. But yeah, there was something about like, man, it's like watching those films. You do realize two things. One, how far we have come, because like racism in the South was just so blatant that you're just like, you can kind of imagine it, but it's just like, man, it was like unapologetically racist, right? Unapologetically racist. But you can also see why we have these problems today, because like, for it to be like that in the late 60s, so much so that they actually didn't film, they purposely didn't film in the South. Poitier was like, I'm not filming this in the South, because he was literally afraid of the Ku Klux Klan. Like, I read on IMDb, like him and I forgot who it was. I think Harry Belafonte.
It's probably Belafonte.
Yeah,
I
Harry
imagine it was
Belafonte.
Belafonte. Yeah.
Like they had an incident with the Ku Klux Klan where they like were like almost run off the road, and like, so like, which is funny because like actually
It's
happens
in the
this
movie.
movie.
It happens in
I was
the
like, what
movie,
happens
yeah.
in the movie like happened to him in real life, and he was like, I'm not filming in the South, and they had to film like one scene like in Tennessee, and they went down there, like the cotton scene, and they went down there and they filmed it, and then like they did get into a little bit of trouble and they had to leave, like, and so it was just like, so that kind of like, where you're like legitimately afraid for your life, like in this film where he has to like, I gotta leave, like you gotta get out of here or you're gonna die. Like, you're just straight up going to die, and nobody's going to care, and nobody's going to stop it.
Yeah.
Like, that's insanity to me, you know?
Yeah.
And you realize, oh, man, okay, if that's where we were in the late 60s, yeah, it makes sense that this racism problem is it was so ingrained into society, you know what I mean, that you're like, hey, these issues, like, even though people aren't maybe that flat out racist today, it's like, it's so deep within our subconscious.
And
you know what I mean?
Like this is a sidebar because I know we have to hear how Dra felt about it too. But like that
We
is
don't care
a
about
thing
Dra.
that like
Yeah, I'm
watching,
here.
no, but that's a thing that like in watching the movie now that I feel like it's hard to tap into direct. Like there's so much suspense in this movie.
Yeah.
But then the moments of hearing him say, "I have to stay,"
Right.
like in 1967, hearing someone say that, like it had to be like what?
Way
Like,
more significant.
he's yeah, like
It's
like,
amazing that
Totally.
people didn't have a sense. Well, no one was listening to African American voices.
Right. Yeah.
So I could see an African American reviewer going, "Why did you have to stay?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just go
Leave.
back to
Screw
Philadelphia."
them. Oh,
Right.
sure. I did
Screw
think
But
that.
no one was listening to African Americans at the time.
Yeah.
They were going,
Yeah.
it's a drama wrapped in race.
Right.
It's like,
Right. Yeah.
he was just a dude. Like, Tibbs was just a cop.
Yeah, he was just
He
a
was
cop.
a good cop.
A cop in Philly.
Of course, he was the best cop, right? They
Yeah.
made sure to make sure you knew. He was
Absolutely.
the best.
Can I say this, Gerard? Something I wrote down in my notes last night when I was watching the movie. Something I wrote down in my notes was like, in what world, even in the North,
I know, it's so
is
true.
he allowed to be
Yeah.
the best homicide
best.
expert?
I
Yeah.
know.
Like,
I
how
was
does
thinking about that
I
too?
and I think that we're thinking about that in a reality. It's almost like the screenwriter whose name is escaping me right now
Yeah.
is going, here's what I need to say to move the story forward, no matter
Yeah.
what color
exactly.
anybody is.
Yeah.
But what's so weird is, how does he, as a black person, even in the North,
Right.
Yeah.
get to be the best
The best.
homicide
It was just
expert?
for the plot. It's basically like this is how
Yeah, that's Hollywood.
this is why we need the black dude to be here.
But-
Because if he just would have been a cop, we're all cops. But he had to.
Well,
be
then it's
the
just a mystery.
best
Yeah.
cop.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true though. It's true what you were saying though, like about like him staying, because that was one of the first times. That was one of the first parts of the movie where I was like, "Whoa!" You could tell the difference because when like the speech that Gillespie gives him for him, like the first time he stays, like I was just like, "That's it."
That's it. That's what I said. I was like,
I was like, "What is
leave.
it? Wait, what are they trying to say?" Is
They
it
tried
his
to plant a
pride?
murder on you, bro. Get out of here.
You can just like,
So what? Screw
they
this
try to put it,
dude.
and they're just like, "Oh,
And-
you'll stay because you want to prove it to these whiteys," and
No,
it's like,
fuck them.
No,
They tried
I don't
to-
want.
they
I ain't
would've
trying to do
killed
that.
you.
But like that's also directly connected to that. Like we are so distant from.
And that, exactly, we're
Yeah.
so distant because
Yeah.
So
because
distant.
remember there's two things I want to say.
Right.
Two things that are interesting to me because we're looking at it from a different context,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. True.
The one this is what you're saying, James, which I think is really 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 interesting, and we should lean into.
Yeah.
Is the other thing is that I was thinking about was his chief, who's a northerner, says, well, there are cops and you're cops. How stupid is his chief about
Yeah,
race
what?
relations
Exactly.
in the 60s?
In the South?
How do you not think? And then Virgil's the one that has to say, "But sir," which of course leads us to believe that his chief is white.
Exactly.
To go, you'll be
Exactly.
fine. There are cops and you're cops.
Yes.
But it's Philadelphia. It's a major metropolitan city. How do you not understand the dynamics of racism
Yeah.
in this in America in the late '60s? The other thing, what's the other thing I was going to say? The other thing is, Sidney Poitier is such a good actor. He literally provides the legitimacy glue that we need to make the plot work.
Yep.
It's incredible.
It's
so he says,
incredible.
you just want to show all them boys up north that you know what you're doing and that we are just so stupid down here in the South. That's Rod Steiger,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's what he
And
said.
there are lines that I feel like were written in the script, and Poitier must have said, I can do it with a look.
Yeah, right.
and he did it.
It's
and
so
he
true.
did
I
it.
wrote down like when you first see. So for anybody who, for whatever reason, you listen to this, you haven't seen the film, you should go see it. But
should.
but there is the first time you see Poitier, and by the way, every time you say it makes me feel very subconscious about the way that I'm saying
Poitier.
Because he's
Poitier.
Barbados, right? He's from
Yes,
Barbados.
exactly.
Poitier.
But the first time you see him, he's in the train station. He's just like sitting there,
Straight chilling.
and the white guy's just like,
Read
what are you doing here, boy? And he's just like, he gives him this dead stare, and I was like,
Laser
I was like,
stare.
oh my god, that's
knows.
that Denzel stare, but that's Sidney.
Yeah.
Like Sidney
Well,
had
that's
that.
the thing. I kept on saying, "Oh my God, everything stems from Sidney."
It's
because the thing is,
It does.
he's
God.
not in the film.
presence.
The presence is crazy. He doesn't come across as the righteous black man. He comes across as the righteous black man, as well as the coolest person in any movie
Yes.
made from 1958 to 1971.
I'm telling you right now, this is the thing. I mean, maybe we'll get into this later, but like this, it does kind of annoy me that he was only nominated for 2 films in his entire career.
But
in his entire career.
In his entire career,
But he also got an honorary Oscar though.
Yeah.
He got an honorary Oscar.
wait a minute.
I mean,
He got an honorary
I
Oscar.
Okay, yeah.
But Bray, isn't an honorary Oscar almost better than a regular Oscar? They go. It takes longer to get. It takes longer to get, but it means Gerard, it means you're that great.
We screwed you over so
It's
long.
true. It's true.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me. It's
screwed
like,
you over for
whoops,
so long.
sorry, we were so bad back then. I understand it. That's great. It is true. But I'm just saying, I'm just like, man, this guy was like, Meryl Streep, right, is like that now, right? She's like, every time she's nominated, everybody's like,
you get it.
Yep,
But the
that's
thing
Meryl
about him
Streep,
is he held, to me, is like when I think of Sidney Poitier, like I feel like he had Poitier. I feel like he, and I think you said it, Bray, earlier,
Yeah.
is that he didn't have a lot of diverse roles because I feel like he was the black man.
He was a symbol.
Like he was a symbol of
Yep.
black men. So like almost every movie he was in, it was like, I'm just going to take a black man and put him in this situation. It's
Yeah.
not about like a black man with a drug addiction. It's like, this is just a black man living in the 60s, having him deal with dating a white woman,
Right.
having him be a human who's a cop. It's just like, just deal
And
with this as a
taking it
black
too,
person.
right? And doing it
just
with-
for everybody.
with like responding, like a human being, having pride, but also like, honestly, I mean, maybe this is a weird thing to talk about, but like, Christian values were like very strong back then, right?
yeah.
And so like
Yes.
to me, I was looking at him, I'm like, oh man, like he has that like that forgiveness, that like what like Jesus says, like, like
Turn the other
cheek,
cheek.
even though he slaps the hell out of
Not yet.
All right,
I know. I have
Not yet.
so much I
Hold
want
on.
to say.
Keegan, how did you feel like when you
Watching it again, the thing that was striking me the most was the depth. The depth he still wrung out of the performance.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, Gerard, is that you're saying, right, he's supposed – it's like that old what's the old medieval play? It's not – is it Everyman? What's it called?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Everyman is
Everyman is a play.
Everyman. It's like from the 12th century, whatever the hell it's from. And it's like everybody in the play – no one in the play are characters. They're archetypes.
Everyman.
So Sidney Poitier has to play this archetype. And
Yeah,
you're right.
exactly.
Like you said, he's not encumbered with anything else. We don't know about his wife because he's not married. Because remember the character says,
Right.
"I'm not married."
He's not
right?
married.
So his wife
improvised scene, by the way.
Was that an improvised
Yeah,
scene?
that's
Oh, I
what
did
I'm
not
saying.
know
If
that.
IMDb trivia is correct, it was an improvised scene.
What?
When he's getting holed up in Gillespie's house.
Yeah, that like moment that they have together.
that's
That's
Yeah.
such a good scene.
Isn't that-
amazing.
It's
that
an
that's
amazing
improvised
scene.
Yeah.
And but my feeling is you're right. He's just perfect.
Yeah.
And so I think what was also happening is Hollywood was trying to do a good thing, and in trying to do a good thing, they were doing a mediocre thing,
Yes. Yeah.
a mediocre to bad
Yeah.
thing. So here's the thing: we're gonna make the black man perfect.
Perfect.
And all black people are asking is just make us human.
That's it.
Right.
Even today.
Don't make me perfect.
Yeah.
Just
Even
make us.
today.
That's
Just
why-
like you're not perfect. You know
Right.
what I mean?
aren't.
This is why, at some point in time in your future, and don't make me fly back here and spank the three of you. Y'all have to have Pursuit of Happiness as a movie.
Oh my
Because
God.
Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith is a movie about a man who's struggling to make his life work.
Yep.
And he could be white, he could be Hispanic, he could be black.
Yep.
It doesn't matter.
just a dad.
It's just that Will Smith murders it.
How we feel about Will Smith, guys?
Listen, we love Will
love
Smith.
Will Smith.
We love Will
We
Smith.
love
Here at Black Men Can't Jump, we love.
We love
I know.
Will Smith.
I know. I'm from a listener.
We love Will Smith.
But Will Smith. But it's almost like when people say these phrases and these platitudes all the time.
Yeah.
But after what we all witnessed last night on our Amazon Instant or whatever we
Yeah,
were
yeah,
watching it on, right? Is that you go? There is no Denzel or Will without Sidney, and I say that
100%.
because I'm so impressed by how cool
Oh,
and
my
hip.
goodness.
Like when he says lines like "You dig."
Yeah,
You know,
and it
I'm
just,
not going in for
flows.
it. You dig?
Denzel
It made me
thanked
feel
him.
so cool.
When Denzel won the Oscar,
he literally says
Poitier
backstage,
is
he talks
it.
about
Yes.
Sidney because he's like, he even says exactly what you just said. I wouldn't be here without this man.
Yes.
Yes.
'Cause
Yes.
I believe, and listeners, correct me if I'm wrong, the Oscars when Denzel and Halle
Yes,
won.
you are correct.
Technically, that's the Black Oscars, and
Yes.
that's when Sidney got his honorary Oscar,
That's
right? So it was like that was like a night that the Oscars was like,
And
oh,
Halle
black
won,
people
yeah.
exist. They're good. You know, they're good.
And
Yeah,
they
it was
have
38 years
nuance
ago. Right.
They
and
can
regular
do
human
stuff.
feelings.
Yeah.
They're you know, and I don't mean to be crass, but
No, but that's
but
it,
to
though.
go from I don't mean to be crass right now. I'm going to be crass.
Be
I'm
crass.
just going to be primal. I'm going to be primal.
Yeah.
It's just that black people aren't apes that look good.
Right.
Yes, you can do something. You can be a dad.
We're human.
Or like these sub creatures that you can like train to like be a good boy.
Yeah.
I mean that's the thing with that boy comment.
I hate
you know
that.
what I mean?
Which was really
hate
well,
that.
I think was so wonderful and necessary in the script that
Yes.
everybody
Yeah.
called him boy,
Boy.
boy,
Yeah.
boy. And here's, can I tell you this? There are lines in films from that day to this day that should be famous, and they're not famous catchphrases because they weren't set up well. And Norman Jewison and the screenwriter, they had like the perfect amount of boy, 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 Mr. Tibbs.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's why we still remember
exactly.
Mr.
Yeah.
Tibbs,
Yeah.
because they got, it was just,
Because he takes it. He
takes it every time.
He takes it, and you
takes it and
you
goes,
know he's
"I'm
upset
done."
about it, but he doesn't say anything, and he's
Well,
just taking
and
it,
the way
taking it.
and the way he says it is so elegant.
Yeah.
What do they call
What
you
do they-
up there in
yeah, what do they
Philadelphia,
call-
Virgil? They
They
call me Mr. Tibbs.
Tibbs.
Yes.
And so the elegance is that he doesn't scream at him. He simply clarifies.
You know they set it up. You know, wait, this film's brilliant. They set it up even more. Not just the boy. Remember the first scene that you see with the guy who winds up, spoiler alert, being the killer.
Yeah.
The first scene that you see, he's talking to the cop, and he's like, "But I think Sam. I think his name is Sam.
Sam's the
He's
cop's
"Wow."
name,
He's
yeah.
he's like Sam, and he goes, "What did I tell you about calling me Sam?" And he's like, "Oh,
It's
sorry,
Officer,
Mr. Wait,
it's Officer Wood.
Because he says it wrong.
yeah.
He says Mr.
He
and
says
he's like,
Mr. and then
Not
he's
Mr.
Officer.
I'm sorry. Officer Wood.
Yeah.
And you're
Exactly.
like, oh, I remember
it's-
when that happened. I was like, see, that's respect. They're showing
Yeah.
that, like, in here, it's a show of respect.
And it's the white equivalency to what we see is violated later in the
Yes.
film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember watching it, and I'm not gonna lie, this movie's great, but I didn't enjoy it.
It was
this
hard
movie.
for you to watch.
I didn't enjoy it because
Oh, interesting.
But the thing to me is like this movie. For some reason, when I thought about this, okay, I'm gonna tell y'all something. Y'all don't know. So no,
okay.
listen, I'm gonna tell you. So my parents are older. They're very older, and there was an incident that happened maybe a year ago where I got pulled over in the South. Like it was getting
snap.
dark, and it was like I'm driving. My stepdad is disabled. We're going to the Special Olympics. I'm in the slow lane. I get pulled over by a white cop. White cop pulls up, takes my ID, doesn't come back. Another cop car comes up. Another white cop.
Wow.
No one tells me what's happening. Now, again, my parents are older.
And they didn't say anything when
Oh.
when they approached the vehicle. They didn't say
He was
your
like,
lights
he
are
was like-
out,
he
you're
said,
speeding.
No, he said license registrations. Other cop pulls up. Next thing I know, me and my parents are talking because we're going to the Olympics. Nothing's happening. And all of a sudden, he's like, I need you to step out the car. And my mom is like, no, you step out the car. And my stepdad is much older, and he's from the South. He immediately regressed to, and you know,
I know
this is the
to
wrong
the,
way.
to the
Yeah,
old.
yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me put it.
Yeah.
Let me put it in a psychological way for you.
Yeah.
yeah.
The old tapes.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
he went back to this thing of like fear, like straight fear.
Absolutely, and subjugate.
Yeah. And I was like, what's going on? And the thing is, as a dude, I'm like, what's going on? And mind you, as I'm looking, there's another cop on the opposite side where my mother is in the back seat pointing a gun. And I'm like, what
Wait, for
the
real?
hell is going on? And my license, I lived in LA, and the thing is, when I moved to New York, the DMV doesn't forward mail. So I had an expired license. But they didn't tell me, like, I knew none of this. All I know is I'm getting dragged out of the car from my parents, and it's like my stepdad just had this thing of like fear.
Right.
And I'm thinking, like, in my head, that's what this movie reminded me of. It's like the opening is Sidney Poitier is like at the train station, just waiting, doing nothing.
Literally doing
Nothing.
nothing.
And he's
Nothing.
and they're about to basically put him in for murder. Unless he was a cop. And the thing is, in my head, for some reason, it
No
just brought me back to
questioning.
that. Nothing.
Yeah,
And,
no question.
And
Oh,
I'm
you're a
thinking about
black guy
it,
here.
2013, I didn't know what was going on until I got, so I took my picture and a black female cop saw me and told me what was happening. So I got booked without knowing. Didn't know where my parents were. It's like I had no clue what was happening. Until
Did
this
you
black-
were you asking?
Oh,
like,
my
what's-
mom was screaming, "What's going on?" And the thing is, I'm born in,
Right.
like this is, I'm not dumb, and I wasn't born that age, so I wasn't fearful. It was just like, what is happening?
Right.
And it's like that's what that movie reminded me of. You were in a time where that, like, you could have done nothing,
Yeah.
and no one would have cared. Like Sidney Poitier's character, if he wasn't a cop, would have died.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, even as a cop, before we know he's a cop, he does this amazing thing. That whole scene is penetrating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because his mother lives there, so we have what I call a high context piece of dialogue later on in the film that helps justify things earlier in the film.
Yeah.
So he says, I was visiting my mother, right? Mm-hmm. And there's this thing where he knows how to behave in that. He always shows prudence in the film.
Yeah.
He knows how to behave every single step of the way, which is emboldening,
right?
But at the same time, almost makes it a cultural James Bond movie.
So true.
How does he know
He's
what
so
to
smart.
do every step of the
But that's
way?
the sad part, though.
He knows how to push back, like just enough,
just enough.
before, like you know what I mean.
But I think now's the time. Now's the time, right? Because once again, Norman Jewison puts the movie together in such a measured way, and there's such it's startling.
Yep.
And I mean, it's as satisfying as an orgasm.
Yes.
That moment, because Norman Jewison wants it to be
up.
that it's building and building and building. And there's go ahead, Brayla, because I know you've been waiting. You
wanted to say that.
You wanted to say this so bad.
We all do. Go ahead and say it though. Man.
No, yeah. So I mean, and the build up,
the greenhouse scene.
So he's been calling, like we've been saying, he's been calling boy all this, just so much racism is being thrown in his face, flagrant. Like he was almost booked for murder, and like even after when he's helping them, they're still on him for everything, right? And then he's driving, and he has an idea in his head of this guy who might be a suspect. Mm-hmm. They're driving there, and while they're driving there, so there's a field, and you see people picking cotton. All these black women, black children, black men. They're picking cotton. You see some cotton like machines or whatever going, and Gillespie turns to him and he goes, What did he say? He's like, he turns to him and he's
says,
like,
"Did you come here to question me?"
No. So while in the
You're
car,
saying Gillespie.
in the car.
Not Endicott.
Gillespie like kind of turns to him and he's like, none of this for you, huh, boy? Like
Virgil. He says Virgil. He says, none of this for you, huh, Virgil?
Yeah.
You're better than the.
You're better
which is
than
such
them,
an
huh?
interesting, complicated thing for. He means it to be complicated.
Yes.
He says, so you're better than these
so
black
you're
people,
better than
right,
them.
Virgil? And he's like, no, they're better than this.
Exactly.
They just don't know how to get out of it.
And so it's like, oh my goodness, like very reminiscent of slavery. So
No, but to me that's the thing of like Chris Rock talks about, like I always bring up Chris Rock. Like Chris Rock and Bigger and Blacker, he brings up the difference between whatever. I haven't said it on the show. The difference between being a black person and a nigga. And I feel like that's what that question was. It's like, oh, you're black. You're not one of these niggas here. And it's like, what is that? What
and also, well, and in this context, in this movie, the context is, but it's your society that you've built in the South. It's the culture and the heritage that you built in the South that make these people like this.
Right.
Yes,
it goes back.
You made them niggas.
Yes, exactly.
They didn't ask to be niggas. You made them
Exactly.
niggas. Don't put it on me, Gillespie.
It is like the everyman thing. Like the everyman thing is sort of heightened there, right? In that it's not the same thing that Chris Rock is saying, like there's black people and there's niggas, right? In this case, it's like, no, we're all the same. But it's the situation.
So all this is happening. They get to this place. I forgot the character's name.
Endicott.
So they get to Endicott's place. He's like in this greenhouse, with orchids and Virgil begins questioning him, and he doesn't realize, and Endicott doesn't realize it. So he begins questioning him about it, and then when it like kind of turns, and you're like, oh wait, when Endicott realizes, are you questioning me about this man's murder? Mm-hmm. And it was like, wait a minute, I've been standing here, and this nigger has been questioning me,
the nigga who I got lemonade for.
It's like, and
I got this nigga lemonade.
I just got him some.
I got this nigga
like,
lemonade.
That's right. And his servant goes to get him lemonade.
Yeah,
right.
He got him lemonade.
Is questioning me, and he slaps him, and without skipping a beat, Virgil slaps him right back.
Yeah, it was the best moment ever. And then
it's the best moment in the movie.
The best moment,
and you're not expecting it to happen.
Oh no, because
not at all.
Because what's the guy's name? The white dude,
Endicott.
Endicott, and Endicott walks right
dude.
over. He walks right over without saying a word. He just walks over to him, smacks him, boom, reflex smack.
It was a back slap, right? It was a back slap.
It's a re-slap. It's a reflex back slap.
Reflex.
It happened. It was like blah blah And you're like,
And he stared him down.
And here I am. I was tired last night. I'm this is like 11:45
Yes,
at night.
me
I was like,
too, man.
I was like, oh shit!
Exactly.
Oh, he's gonna smack this motherfucker in the face.
He's how it like it's a shocking now and.
Woo!
It was-
I mean,
so
it's
shocking.
67?
So
67?
wait, so there's so many cool trivia things about this. So it's a little bit it's debated. Apparently, who wrote the screenplay?
I got it.
I can't remember
Okay,
his
so
name.
it's
a really interesting name,
Yeah, because
too.
but Sidney says that it wasn't in the script originally, and that he was like he came to the producers, came to the director, and was like, I will not do this unless I get to slap him back. Because that is what a human person would do. They would not just like get slapped and
Interesting.
take
He
it.
says that's what a human person
That's
would
what
do.
a
Especially
human
person-
A man.
And Virgil, forget if he's black, white, Asian. Virgil is a badass.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
You don't fucking slap me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No matter what
Now
color
I'm
he
doing
was.
my job. I'm doing my job
I'm
at
doing
this
my
point.
job, and you don't just walk around. I'm doing an investigation
Exactly.
right now. You don't slap me
You
in the
don't
face.
slap me in the
I'm
face.
a cop.
Yeah, like
Exactly. You don't slap a
You don't
cop
slap
in the
a
face.
cop in the
because we know
face.
what happens when you look at a cop nowadays. You know what happens. We know what happens.
Okay, so yes, that's right. Sterling Siliphant.
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 Sterling Siliphant wrote the script, yeah.
So apparently there's like they said that it was originally in the script. Whatever, if it happened or didn't, I'm sure that conversation took place.
Oh,
had
absolutely.
to.
Yeah.
Even if
There
it
had
wasn't,
to.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it took place because you know what the other thing is. What Sidney was like, I want this in. He's like, I don't just want this in the film. It needs to be in every version of the film. That means the version that you're showing down in the South, because that's the thing. You know what I mean? Movies
Right,
can
they
take
show a
different
different
takes and they show
version.
different
Yeah.
versions. They show different versions
Isn't that amazing,
internationally
James, that
sometimes.
they would show different
Different
versions in different parts of the country.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And he was like, this needs to be, if you're playing it in the South, this is the film, and it's in the South. And so he was like very specific about it.
The good part, he had that power is great too, though.
And he did. He did have that power.
yeah.
He was
Yeah.
very, very,
Well,
very
the thing
popular.
is, and the other thing is that, and in that scene, and I always wondered this, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Samuel L. Jackson once, and if I meet him again,
Yeah.
now that I've watched this movie, I'm going to ask him this question. Say, that character that you played in Django,
Right.
Yes.
was it at all? Was there ever a trigger point for you? And was the trigger point the servant?
servant.
Remember when the servant?
Gives him
looks at Mr.
gives him
Endicott and goes,
shade. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
Well,
my
yes.
God,
and the
when that
thing is,
happened.
Yes.
you can look at that two different ways. He throws shade to Endicott,
Yeah.
or he says
Oh, you're gonna die.
or he says that black man who just left here, sir, doesn't know his place.
Right.
Yes, it could be one of two.
It could be
Yeah.
one of two meanings.
I thought it was the second one.
Yeah,
I thought it was the second one.
too.
I thought it was the
He's like,
second one.
I know my place, sir. I don't think he
wow.
knows.
I thought it
his
was the
place.
second one.
You're
Right.
right.
Can't let Negroes in the
Can't let
house.
Negroes get up in there like
You
that.
want
Yeah.
to give lemonade?
He got it.
And the other thing is, you're right. He's such a badass. Like he's legitimate detective. Like
Yep.
he's the best. It's a great murder mystery. I think the movie would hold up. I'm not sure. I think it would hold up without the racial component.
Yes.
Do you guys think the movie would hold up without the racial
Yeah.
component?
Yes.
100%. It is good. It is a very. That's what I was saying at the top. It's a very good like mystery crime film. The other thing. So another little trivia thing. I'm sorry. I'm like.
No, go ahead.
But like apparently, I don't know if it was the director or the producer, but they were a little bit worried that it was playing because in the North there was a lot of laughter that was happening and they were like, this isn't a comedy, this is a drama, but the laughter was coming from like
Irony.
just the irony and like the fact that Sidney was showing that Virgil
yeah.
was like showing up this racist town, like making them look really stupid, and so people were laughing at that. But when the slap came, dead silence, and he was like, "Oh, okay, I know that this is a drama." And then they also said they used to play this game where they would go and they would say, "We know if this is a white audience or a black audience, because if it was a white audience, you would hear, oh my gosh, like, whoa, dear,' something like that, right? And if it was a black audience, it would just be, woo! And I was like, oh, is this where it came from?
No, but it's
That
so
stereotype?
interesting because the thing is, it's like when I look at that movie, it was very uncomfortable, but it was like, I mean, I'm gonna say it. Like I know, whatever. I'm gonna say it. I know we do this podcast about like a lead black actor, but we touched on it a little bit. Keegan, you touched on it. Sidney wasn't the lead of this movie to me. He was top billed.
Okay.
He was top billed. But the thing about it is, he wasn't the lead because there was no growth for him. He was, you know what he was? He was, I like comics. So he was Robin to the white cop's Batman, because Batman is the one who experiences everything. He experiences like, oh man, I almost did this guy dirty. Oh, I have to defend this guy. And they say, do you want your job at one point? Like the higher up is like, after he smacks him, he's like, our other sheriff would have shot him. You know, like they make sure you know that he is growing. Sidney again doesn't grow.
But I will say this now. I'm just going to take a moment of umbrage against the comparison.
Right.
Only to say this, because Batman has the know-how in the Batman Robin,
Exactly.
and in this situation, Virgil has the know-how.
True.
So,
True.
would you be willing to accept that maybe we could call it a two-hander?
Yes, I would. I
It's
would
a
agree with that.
two-hander,
I would agree with
right?
that.
That it's a, like,
I would agree with
no,
that.
you did say like a buddy cop film.
It would
right?
be to me. This is a buddy cop film without the humor.
Well,
Because
the one cop, because in this scenario, the way I look at it, Gillespie is kind of like I'm getting. This is a kind of a wonky example. If you take Starsky and Hutch and make them the same person, and then you have Huggy Bear.
yes,
So Gillespie is Huggy Bear because Gillespie knows the territory.
Yes.
Gillespie knows the cultural topography and the politics of the area, and Virgil has the know-how.
Right.
And what's interesting is I wish here's a thing I wished in the film. I wish that they would have explained a little. It would have been one scene.
Yep.
Just the kind of the political landscape in Sparta, because what is the motivation for Gillespie to say the phrase, "Well, I don't have an expert.
Right.
I don't have
Yeah.
an expert for this
Yeah.
crime," and maybe I'm just supposed to glean enough from like
thought
the
it was
guy
just
that
like
the
there was
guy
like
that got killed is the guy who's bringing all the jobs to
Yeah.
Sparta.
Right. That's true.
for everybody too.
For
They make sure to
everybody.
make sure you know
Like
it's like
that town-
for colored people as well.
Yeah, that town needed financially it needed
It
this,
needed this
and
infusion.
and they did set it up where like if they didn't find out who the killer was, the wife
She was
of the
cute, by the
deceased
way.
was gonna
was going to leave.
she was
the
gonna
town.
leave.
Yeah,
She was
yeah.
gonna- and she said it, and that's why they had to keep Virgil there because they were like, if you don't let that Negro stay on the case, I'm out.
yeah,
Right, and
And
she's
so
from
the mayor
Chicago.
was like-
She's from Chicago, which is once
Exactly.
again. And it's
and
funny.
they were like,
this is,
oh, it's appalling how you treat this man.
this is
Yeah.
one of those movies too, where and I can't say it's the first movie because I don't know that for sure.
Right.
But I love that it's one of those movies where you have that sensibility where you get that weird sensibility where the North is evolved.
Right.
Yes.
He's
Yes.
from Philly.
Yeah.
She's from Chicago. She's
Exactly.
like, I can't believe how you savages are treating.
Right, exactly.
But the thing is-
Not that racism didn't exist in the North,
the
but
North,
it
it's
wasn't
just like,
it wasn't
we
like
don't do this. We don't do this.
Oh, how dare you?
How dare you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and it's so funny when he's getting. There's a scene where Sidney Poitier, Mr. Tibbs, is getting chased like kind of in a car chase. And the thing is, it's so funny. He's getting chased by, I guess, like white people who hate him. And they show.
That's a good way to put it.
They only show at one point the Confederate flag.
Yeah.
Of
That's
the-
it.
which
Of
is
the car behind
which is
him.
so relevant
top,
right
right?
now.
So
Holy
relevant.
crap!
Because the thing is,
And
like,
so
it's,
I was
it's
looking
just
at that.
and the thing is, the only shot to show that these people hate him is the shot of the Confederate flag.
Yeah, there's like one other shot of the guys in the car kind of
quick shot.
salivating, going, "We gonna string us up a nigga today."
Yeah, and they go back to the flag.
rest, and then right back to the
Back to
Confederate
the flag.
flag. And then and then the
Isn't
driver
that-
negotiating, and then back to the flag,
Back to
and
the
then
flag.
Virgil, and then back to the flag.
Isn't that
Yeah.
funny how it was so obvious to everybody in 1967 that
Right,
the
and
Confederate
this
flag
represented.
is a
the flag
symbol
only
of
goes
hate.
down, and the flag goes down only in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Yep.
in
Yep.
2015.
Isn't that crazy?
And it was a big deal
And people
when
are
it
like,
went
no,
down.
No, it's just our heritage.
You
Like,
guys
your
think
heritage
here's the
is that-
thing.
the
And what's so
people-
amazing is y'all lost that war in the 1860s.
Yes.
It's 2015, and you lost the war in 1865.
If that flag, if the people who hung that flag high would have won, I would not be. We wouldn't be in the room here with our producers. I wouldn't be here.
Our
with
lovely
y'all.
producers.
Our lovely producers. We wouldn't be
lovely
here because that flag to me, and I don't give a shit if anyone's gonna call me out on it. That flag represents straight hate. And it's it just represents hate. And the fact that like this is a big deal. And to me, when I saw that movie, this movie just touched on things that are happening right now to me. Like cops can just pin. Not all cops.
Yep.
I have friends with cops, but cops can pin stuff on you without a question. And the fact that that flag is what chased him down. They barely showed the people in the car. It
You're
was
right.
The flag
I
that
really
chased
think
him down.
I think you're right, Joe. I think in that entire action sequence, it's 2 shots of the guys.
That's it.
And there's like 10 shots in the scene.
yeah.
There's so 8 shots of a Confederate flag bumping into the bumper
Just
of
the-
another
just the
car.
flag.
Yep, flag.
They
flag,
never showed
flag.
they never showed the back of Mr. Tibbs' car. It was
Never,
always
never.
Sidney flag.
Sidney
flag.
flag.
Maybe a wide shot flag.
Flag,
So you
yeah.
knew
Yeah.
who was coming after.
I'm
you.
gonna throw this, James. Like, just because we, Oh man, this conversation is so good. But
Keep going, keep going, keep going. We're going.
So one of the reasons I think that this, one of the reasons I think it's hard to tell if Virgil Tibbs was the main character of this movie is because, like I said, that motivation, they didn't explore it enough. It made it seem like Gillespie was the one who gave him the motivation.
It was.
Instead of like, I think if Sidney wasn't such an incredible actor, I feel like it would be hard to tell. But like, you can see him like contemplating inside himself, and like, as a viewer, I was like, oh, he's realizing the importance of being here and changing the way that these people think.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't actually get a scene where he really gets to say that, right?
Yeah.
There's no scene where he gets but if that scene was there, do you think it would have been?
Absolutely. I struggle with that a lot. Like the whole movie, I was like, oh, like we're like, because he's this fish out of water, we don't get to hear him just talking to somebody until way later, you know, till that improvised scene that happened. But like
About his backstory.
We don't get to hear him like have moments of doubt, really, you know, because he is such an outsider in the movie. So like, you know, you have this fight of like, oh, I know this is supposed to be about him, but I can't tell that it is because we don't get to be alone with him in that.
I mean, I feel like as an actor, not as a producer, I'm watching Sidney Poitier wrest the movie into the world of logic.
It's so true.
There are places. I mean, that's
as
how
an
good,
improviser.
That's
looking at
exactly.
that, you're like, wow.
He was almost operating as an improviser.
It's so true.
He's going, I have to knit these pieces together, which is plot.
Yep.
And you're right, James. It's like, why? Okay, we get it at the beginning. His boss says,
You gotta stay.
you have to stay.
Right.
We don't even know what the motivation for his chief to tell him that is.
No.
Yeah.
There really
and
isn't
then,
any.
it's the subsequent pleas to stay, or the subsequent ideas or motivations to stay that he deals with masterfully. Because I think that those can be looked upon, or construed as plot.
Yeah.
Loose plot.
Loose plot.
There's
There's a little bit of plot holes. There's a little bit of plot
And then
holes.
like it puts a lot on the viewer to be like, oh, you know, once he's like,
happening.
I have to stay, you're like, oh, that's the type of detective that this man is. You know,
Right.
like once he feels close, he has to keep going until he
Yeah,
cracks it.
and that's not racial. He's obsessed.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
It paints him to an archetype a little bit, but like that. But so one of the reasons I was thinking about that is because I was like, man, if there was a scene, for instance, if there was a scene with his mother.
I wish. Yeah.
And he goes home to his mom, and he's like, you. First of all, you need to leave. Like, this place is awful. This is how they've been treated. I can't imagine how they've been treating you. You need to get out of here. You need to come up to Philly. I have a good and the mom just has like instills some sense of like responsibility, which is what African Americans for so long still today have. Like, they have an extra responsibility that white people just don't have.
They don't have. They just simply don't have. Yeah,
and it's not, it's not. It doesn't mean, it's not like their fault, but it's just like the way that our society was construed. African Americans have an extra sense of responsibility, and if we got to like have that talk just a little bit, just a taste of it, then I'd have been like cool. And that end scene, because that's the thing that bothered me, was that the end scene, even though I was like, okay, Gillespie's we're supposed to like hear that line where he's like, you take care now, you hear? As like we're like, oh, he changed him a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I was like, what I thought was going to happen, what didn't happen was he was going to be like, he's like, you take care now, Mr. Tibbs. And it never came.
Yeah.
Right. He never.
And I was like, oh.
And that may be a result of the movie being made in 1967.
That's 100%.
I'm saying it to you.
Yeah.
Braylock, because it's interesting to look at you. I love calling you by your last name. It's a great last name.
Thank you.
Is I like looking at a 21st century sensibility.
Right.
Talking about the film. Going, he should have called him Mr. Tibbs, but that's not what they did.
Yeah.
So they probably sat around, the writers probably sat around, and Jewison probably sat around and said, we can't do it. That's unrealistic.
Yeah.
It's completely realistic
insane?
to us and unrealistic to them.
Yeah, they're like, it wouldn't move the dial that much.
It wouldn't move the dial that much.
It's enough that he would just say, you take care now. Like, show him a modicum of
Or the
respect.
other way to put it is, it would move the dial too much. And they go, whoa, that's absurd.
Right.
that guy would never call that guy
Right.
by
This is
by
too-
his formal,
right.
respectful title.
Right.
And like in thinking about that though too, like if the slap, going back to the slap,
Yeah.
like if the slap was a thing that Sidney Poitier was like, this must be in the movie, then they needed to then also add the moments where the guy's like, why didn't you shoot him after he slapped? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
Right.
you know, which kind of like that was a thing that stood out to me. I was like, why is this happening? But then it was like, oh wait, no, they would obviously have to address what's different about
Yeah.
you. You know, like I don't know.
So, Gerard, why don't we get into the swirl a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
This is a real tough
This
one.
feels wrong
no,
to
this
do.
Feels really.
No, it
This
does.
feels
but
wrong.
It is
I've-
just so idealistic.
I've thought about it.
Yes.
And
Okay.
just so you know, the swirl is.
Explain the
Keegan,
swirl.
so the swirl is. I feel like black men aren't seen as sex symbols enough.
Right.
Because we are men. We
are men.
We have a
handsome.
sexual life.
We have a sexual
We
drive.
have a sexual life.
But I feel like a lot of times in movies and on TV, you will see a white man with a black woman or a woman of some type of ethnicity.
Sure.
Because that's the thing. And, you know, we have a history as African Americans where, like, if you were a black man and you looked at a white woman at a certain time, you were killed.
You were killed.
Right.
Yeah. Emmett Till.
Emmett Till.
To kill a mockingbird.
Like, you know what I'm saying? You could think, like, it happened. So my thing is, to me, is like we will never be considered equals in movies until black men can have sex with a white woman on screen, because at that point, if it's not about his race, we're equal. It's
Right.
like that's it. There's no
It's-
other.
And it's not that. Sorry, just to clarify, because like I know some people like
people
you
come at
know
me all the time.
we you know
Yeah.
we're doing this comedically, but like
Yeah.
some people I think don't
come at me
really
all the
understand.
time, but I
It's
always
not
have
that
my
we
answers.
think like, oh, for the black man, a white woman is the
It's not.
It's not the
epitome.
paradigm.
It's not.
It's
Yeah.
or the paragon. I'm
Right,
sorry.
Yeah.
but it's just this. It's just a social taboo that has been. And Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was a movie that Sidney did.
Yeah.
But like, it is just that taboo that like even on screen, people are still like, oh, it feels dangerous for the black man to be with a white woman.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
It's too
so-
scary.
It is.
So, yeah.
So basically, what I do is in every movie, we decide when there could have been a swirl. When could the black man have had sex with a white woman in the movie? Even if there is none, we say where there is one.
Well, in this movie, you know, what's interesting and so provocative in this film is when the
gonna talk
girl
about
who
it.
got pregnant
Yep.
comes, and one of the best parts of the movie is her brother saying, "I can't believe you allowed a Negro in the room to listen. You know, that's disrespectful." And there's and there was nothing sexually charged about the scene. That dynamic, or no? Do you think
There was one.
She gave a look. She gave a look
She
when he
gave
was outside.
one look before they went into
Yep.
the office.
She
She
walked
came
in.
in and she looked at him, and there was to me, I
Yep.
was like, ooh,
Yeah,
There was
and it's,
something-
and the thing is,
Oh, I thought
there's-
that look. I
Oh.
actually thought that look was the opposite. I thought
it was in. I thought it was
Who
in.
the fuck are you?
I thought it was
Yeah.
in.
Were you?
I
I
thought,
don't know. I thought it was like,
I think there are 2 points in this movie where the swirl could
okay,
have
go
happened.
ahead.
One of them is going to be controversial, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
Okay, well,
The first one is
This whole segment is
the first one is the wife.
Yeah.
The wife.
Oh yeah, Colbert.
Colbert's wife.
Colbert's wife.
The thing is, she was from Chicago, where interracial dating might have happened in secret, whatever, but it was going down. Now, here's the thing: her husband is gone.
Yeah.
Okay, my thing is, she could have been like, "Hey, you put that Negro back on here," and they say no, and she's like, "You know what? I'm gonna get him to come back." And next thing you know, Mr. Tibbs.
She seduces
She goes-
Mr. Tibbs.
she
He
goes-
is
she
single.
goes-
He
she's single.
is.
He's
He
single.
is single.
And she technically is single now,
She's
too.
technically- she's a widow.
Talk about it.
Yeah. So this is my thing. This is my thing. Okay. Because we know Mr. Tibbs is staying with the black mechanic,
Yeah.
right? So Mr. Tibbs could be stressed out, thinking it's like, oh man, somebody's trying to come kill me again. Next thing you know, it's the white woman, and she's like, hey, I know you're a good cop, the best homicide cop.
In Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia, the North, where people are smart. Okay, and she's like, you know what? I need you to stay. And he's like, I don't want to stay. This place is racist. And she's like, no, not all of us are that bad. And he's like, no. He's like, no, I need to get out of here. And she's like, no, just stay. He's like,
Dialogue is
Oh,
amazing.
man.
and he's like, why should I listen? Why should I listen to anything you say? Because I'm from Chicago. What? You from Chicago? That's the North. I'm from the North. What? She closes the door.
And in that particular movie, that's all you're gonna get.
That's all you're gonna
that's
get.
all you're gonna get in that movie.
Wait. Could it be this though? Can this be the end? Can this be the end? So that's all you're gonna get. They kind of go and you hear, and it starts to fade. It starts to fade out, and then all you hear is, Mr. Tibbs.
Yes. But hold on. You gotta
add to that. We gotta add to that.
That's what it is.
We gotta add to that. Basically, we gotta get the shot from outside the window. So basically, she
It's
closes
pulling
the door.
back. She closes the door.
And all you
cut
see
to the
is silhouettes.
exterior.
The
Pulling
silhouettes.
back from the window. There's silhouettes.
Silhouette.
And then,
They hold each other. They go
Mr.
down.
Tibbs.
Mr.
Tibbs.
And he's like, what is he say? He got to say one of those classic words. Damn right. He got to say something. He got to say something good.
dig.
You dig. You dig.
She says, Mr. Tibbs, and he goes, "That's my name."
That's what it. The second
That's
one.
what they call
The second one is kind of tricky because the thing is like this. Usually they in movies they don't hire people that are the same age. So I didn't know the sister was 16 until they got in the room.
Oh no, neither did I.
No, I didn't know the room was
That was
16.
not a 16-year-old
That
girl.
was not a
Now,
16.
was that
No.
that 16-year-old girl the same girl that you kind of
So
see naked?
That's the girl you see
That's
naked.
her. And the
Because
That's
thing-
her.
I was-
because-
when
the
I-
thing is,
I was like,
you realize that's what the name of the movie is.
Yes,
Yeah.
in the heat
In
of
the
the
night
night.
of the night. It was so hot that night. I was
Yeah.
traipsing around in my birthday
Yeah,
suit.
the heat of the night. So I didn't know she was 16. So this is my thing. It was questionable. I'm gonna just imagine. Let's fictional world. She's 18.
Okay.
She's 18 in the fictional world. Mr. Tibbs. no. Keegan, everyone listen.
boy. No, we can listen for this one.
No,
I'm
listen.
still
no,
with-
listen.
I'm
I
on
said
board.
18.
I'm on
I
board.
said
She's
18.
Okay, she's 18.
She's 18.
She's legal.
She's legal. Okay. Here's the thing. Mr. Tibbs knows where everyone goes. Mr. Tibbs knows what's happening. Okay. Mr. Tibbs knows that she goes to the
Producer
window
Nick
naked.
is shaking his head.
No, listen, hear me out.
Okay.
Producer
Mr.
is
Tibbs,
shaking his head.
Mr. Tibbs knows that she goes to the window naked. How does he know? How does he know?
You're right. How
How
does
did
he
he know?
know that Sam
He would have
skipped
had
the block?
He would have had to go back to that block and saw her
did think
naked.
about
He would have
that.
had to
I
have
did
known.
think about
So this
That
my
is a
thing.
hole in the story.
This is my thing. He would have had to go back the night after. And he's walking.
Because
What's
he
going
gets
on?
out of the
What's going
car.
on?
He gets out of the car.
He
remember?
leaves. He's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" He walks past the window. She's there naked. Next thing you know, he's like, "What the hell is this white girl doing naked in this window?" And all of a sudden, he stops, confused, trying to figure it out. As he's doing that, she vanishes. You know what happens now? The door opens.
Oh dear.
The door opens, and he's like, "I gotta go in this door.
That's from the door.
I gotta go in this door."
Just a reminder, in this scenario, she's 18.
She's 18 in this scenario.
In this scenario,
Oh, yeah,
you know what? In this
that makes-
scenario, let's make her 22.
Yeah,
22,
that's good. I like that.
22. She was just, so he goes in and he's like, "Hey, what's happening?" And she's like, and she and she doesn't say anything.
Hey.
What's going on?
What's happening?
Is it hot? Is it hot in here? And all of a sudden, she doesn't talk. She doesn't talk because you never hear her talk until she gets in the room, and she's forced to talk because she doesn't talk. And he's like, "Hey, listen, I'm he's like, hey, did that cop, did Sam come over here and talk to you?" She gives him a nod, and he's like,
She's naked.
She's naked the whole time because she's always naked when she's in the window.
Why?
Okay, that's the movie, not me.
Why is she in? Okay.
She answered the door because she's curious because she's
Continue,
bored.
continue.
They said the whole time. She said that I'm bored.
Right.
He leaves me at home, and she's like, "You know what? I never met a black man with a suit because he wears white people clothes.
Right.
I want to have sex with the black man who wears white people clothes. Does he have sex like a white man? Or does he have sex like a black man? She don't know.
She
She doesn't
what that
know.
means.
But she does
What-
know.
but she
That's
knows.
illegal.
She knows. She knows.
And it
She's-
was illegal.
It literally-
was.
it
It was
literally
illegal.
was
illegal.
And she's in the South. She needs to feel spicy. She needs to feel a little edge in her life. So what's crazier? What do you want up after like being naked in front of a white cop? Having sex with a black man in a suit in the South.
Next one.
She wouldn't even close the door. She wouldn't even close the door. She's like, "What's your name, Mr. Tibbs?" He's like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Leave the door open." That's it. Leave the door open.
All right.
Two squirrels, y'all.
Forget it. Let's get out of here.
Well played. Well played.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
played.
you.
All right, cool. You can send your hate mail to at Blackman Podcast on Twitter.
This needs to go directly to Gerard. Sign off on this.
Yeah, just Gerard's Twitter.
Directly to Gerard.
Cool. All right.
I like that you said that, Braylock, that people need to understand that it's a comedy.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a
it is.
comedy.
It's a
It is
comedy podcast.
It's a comedy
at the end of the day.
podcast.
But 'cause I get a lot of hate. So
I
it's
know,
like
I
people
know.
come at me all the
Do you
time.
get a lot of hate?
People come at me
Well,
all
Well,
the
you know what
time.
you need to
Little
do? You know what you need to do? Even if he's not the lead, I haven't seen the movie or even thought about the movie in a long time. There's a movie with Ellen Barkin and Lawrence Fishburne called Bad Company.
I've seen it.
Yes.
And if you've seen it, there's your swirl movie. The other swirl movie, of course, is Mississippi Masala with
I do not
Denzel. And I cannot think of her name right now. Her name is escaping me. She's an Indian actress who is in Homeland. She plays Saul's wife in Homeland.
Great.
Sarita. Yeah. So her name is Sarita, and she's in a film called Mississippi Masala with Denzel Washington, and it's an Indian family. And she's the daughter, and they have a romance. and it's an Indian family that's moved to Mississippi, and Denzel's character lives there.
Right.
And it's an interesting film.
Things are changing because
it's almost like there's a secondary part of this podcast,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the swirl section. Find those films,
Right.
Yeah.
and then yeah.
because
And-
just
tweet-
recently,
tweet at us, actually, some films,
Jonathan, you remember his name? He's the lead in the new Star Wars movie.
John Boyega.
Boyega.
He just signed on to be Emma Watson, Hermione's love interest in a new film.
Very cool.
And to me, it's so
Love
cool
it.
because he's young. He's young,
Yeah.
and it's like
Oh, Attack
Will
the Block
Smith
is so
just
good.
did it, and it's like, yes, this is it. This is what the swirl
Right.
is about. Like we're just
And there's, if I may, there's a movie for you guys.
Yeah.
Because Attack the Block is not an
Yes.
American studio movie, but it's
Exactly.
a studio
It's
movie.
a studio
Yes, it
movie.
is.
And
Yes, it is.
almost
That movie's
all
so
the
good.
characters are black.
Yep.
Yes.
And they're
Yes.
saving the day.
And the white characters are the comic relief.
Comic
Yep.
relief.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, my
we
God,
should
that-
definitely do Attack the
Oh,
Block.
Attack the Block
Yeah.
is so. I'm so down to do that. Absolutely. All right. Cool. So, it's time.
It's time.
James, what?
What?
What were you gonna say?
I'm just saying.
Say it. You're so thoughtful.
I'm just saying. So the movie Hancock, like if we think about it in the heat of the night.
No.
How dare
Think
you?
about it in the heat of the
We have a guest.
No, listen here. If I may, the guest
Yes.
wants to hear him out.
Thank you. Okay, thank
All
you,
right.
Keegan.
You
okay,
gotta- you
so
gotta pass.
In the heat of the night, right, is about a man who's out of place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I might renege.
Wait, no,
I might renege.
wait, no, listen.
I think I'm reneging on my
Wait,
on my
wait, no.
previous
He's a
request.
man- he's a
You're
man
embarrassing
who's
us.
out of place.
He's a man who's out of place.
Okay, keep going.
Okay,
In Hancock.
and he has an ability, a deep ability, deep inside of himself to save people.
Is it a
And I-
superpower? Is it a superpower?
He
It
does
might
kinda-
be.
it's true.
It might be.
You know, it is kind
The
of like
superpower of detecting.
Yeah.
of detecting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bruce Wayne.
And then in the movie Hancock,
Stop.
Stop,
Man. Come on, man.
Wait. Listen, he's on the others. People don't know he's out of place. They're like, why is this man here?
It's not the
Oh,
same.
and then-
No, I'm
wait,
done.
no, listen,
I am
no,
done. It is not
wait.
the same.
And then
Keegan
as
is
the-
looking at us like we're not smart anymore. No, we're not doing this. Okay.
And as
I have to say, Jerome, I'm still intrigued.
thank you, Keegan. Okay, so then as in the heat of the night continues, there's an acceptance that builds from the people that are around him. There's one man, right, that latches on to the outsider.
Is that
Both
Charlize
moves.
Theron? Is that Charlize
And he
Theron's
says,
character?
you know what? He says to other people, you have to. I thought a lot about
can't
it.
even keep a straight face.
He's like, he goes to other people, and they're like, you guys have to. I need Mr. You guys have to do. And in Hancock, they're like, Hancock is just misunderstood.
No,
hey,
that's-
hey,
no,
hey,
no.
All right,
I'm
all
just-
right. I'll give it to you
Don't-
until the
no,
part
Braylock.
until the part where Charlize
And then-
Charlize Theron is like,
Is it
by
Egyptian
the way,
god?
we're Egyptian
We're
gods.
Egyptian gods, and we
We're
can't-
Egyptian gods.
They can't be in the room together. What about that part?
we cannot ignore the Egyptian
Egyptian
gods.
gods.
Egyptian
element.
gods.
We can't be in the room
I don't
together
know.
part of the movie.
I don't even remember if that was a big part of Hancock.
I'm done with
It's,
him. I'm done with him.
Let me just say this. It's the biggest part of it. After the middle of the second act, we have a turn, and that's
I
the
don't-
reveal.
I don't know.
And I
Real
don't think that
structure.
I don't think we can compare Gillespie and Jason Bateman's character.
Not at all.
I think they're like
Not to
very-
mention that some of the cops kind of fall into line, but the town wants to string him up.
yes. It's not this.
But
I'm
can I
done
say
with
this,
him.
James?
Please.
Great effort.
Thank you.
Don't do that.
See, I
Don't
got
do
a
that.
great
No.
effort.
No.
I got a
don't
great
do that.
effort just
Because you
now.
don't have to
Am
stay
I
here.
encouraging
You
him?
don't
I'm
have to stay
encouraging
here.
him.
Yeah, you don't have to stay. You don't have to stay here. Okay. Like this is the worst thing. You know what he's gonna say every week? Keegan, like every week. Every
It's
week.
not going to go away, and I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Oh,
so
boy, oh,
now
boy,
it's
oh, boy,
time.
oh, boy.
Damn, man.
It's time to get. So you may not. It's time to get into the cause.
The cause.
So so Keegan, essentially,
Yes.
the way we rate these films, not on like a scale of 1 to 10 or 5 stars or whatever. We rate it in terms of the cause. Did this movie help the cause of leading black actors in Hollywood in major motion pictures? Now, this film was in 1967 because we have said before we like films that aren't just catered to no FUBU films.
Yeah, no just black
no
audience
forest bias films, and also now, obviously, the 21st century, we would like to do films that aren't just centered around race. That being said, this is 1967. Race was the only thing that black people were really thinking. It's not true. It's not the only thing that black people were thinking about, but it was on everybody's mind. We do Black Fist. Now, we usually do, there's 3 of us, but there's 4 of us today. So we either give it, if you feel like it really helped the cause, Black Fist. If it was so-so, White Palm. And if you feel like it didn't help the cause at all, nothing. Yeah. On the count of 3, we're going to just throw it up. You got to think about it a little bit.
Man, I need a second.
This one's hard. I mean,
it's interesting.
It's
interesting because like it's time-wise,
There's
right?
a context issue.
There's a context issue. Okay, cool. Okay, you ready, guys?
Tough. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I honestly,
Right.
I'm okay.
It's
Cool.
tough, but I've decided.
All right. Okay, here we go. The count of 3.
Closing my eyes.
1, 2, 3.
Oh.
All right.
It's
wow.
50%.
50%.
So we got 2,
2 black fists.
2 black fists.
2 white palms.
Yeah.
which we can combine into 1 fist. So that's 3 black fists.
3 black fists.
3 black fists.
Out of 4.
black fists.
3 out of 4 black
Three
fists.
out of
And
four.
I say it because it's a seminal film.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's one of the big. It's cheating because it's one of the first. It's a pioneer
It's
film.
a pioneer film.
So it's cheating a little bit as opposed to. Here's the thing. If I may just say this.
yes.
The thing is,
Keegan gave it a black fist.
I don't, and I gave it a black fist. At this point in time in our history, I'm trying to think how to say this the best way. This was the best example of us. Okay, it's lacking nuance as a human.
Yes.
But it's showing that a black person can have expertise in something that a white person doesn't have expertise in.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what's. I think that's one important
true.
component
Very
of it.
true.
Okay. The other thing is, then I think because we're alive after this era, which is the civil rights era.
Right.
It's the end. It's the tail end of the civil rights era. The next era was black exploitation.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So what happens is in black exploitation, they were all turned into superheroes.
Yep.
That had these skills that were never quantified by anybody. They were shared with people about our sexual prowess, and then people said, "Hey, that's something that's something that's scintillating that we can link into." So that's what the identity of a black male will be.
Yeah.
As opposed to being a provider. As opposed to being a person who inspires.
Yes. Yeah.
As opposed to being a person who has insight.
Yes.
As opposed to a person who has historical context. It's just, I'm going to be crude. It's just, I know we can narrow it down to for the most sensational and titillating aspect of selling tickets, they've got big dicks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing that happened to us.
Yes.
And there was 30 years of comedians talking about that being the best thing that happened to us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's the It's one of the worst things that happened to us. That's not where our value lies.
Right.
And so I think what happened is almost in a manner of speaking, what we see in The Heat of the Night, what we see in Patch of Blue, what we see in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, what we see in those films got, in a manner of speaking, corrupted in the 70s.
Yeah.
Because we were showing archetypal superheroes that had a particular quote-unquote skill set.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to jumping another 25 years later to a movie like Pursuit of Happiness, where I'm seeing a man who is simply trying to provide for his son.
Yeah.
Right.
And is there some flavor on it? Yes. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, at the core, the movie's about a man trying to provide for his family.
Yeah.
And isn't that story, that human story, what movies should be about?
That's all you want is to be humans, man.
Yeah.
All we're asking is to be human.
That's it. It's like, it's not a. Well, I feel like we go through this every week, and I was, in the car ride here, I was like, man, it's sad that we do this podcast because to me, it's like, it's fun, but it's like the whole point is that we rate movies on whether it helps further the cause of a black person being considered a human in a movie.
And what? And you gave it a white palm. Gerard gave
I
it a white palm.
I gave it a white palm only because there's a question of whether or not Sidney is the lead. So to me, it's like
I see.
So to me, it's like it's a
fair
great
question.
movie. It's a question to me, even if he because again, I'm so sorry I can't remember the cop's name. Gillespie. That actor won Best Actor. So my thing is like for him to be nominated for Best Actor, that poses the question of like,
who leads this movie. For instance, I mean, to be honest, like let's take it back to Training Day. This movie has a Training Day effect. Like Denzel happened to be nominated for Best Actor, even though he was kind of like the Gillespie of that movie.
And the reason he was nominated was because he played a bad guy.
He played the bad guy.
So we're saying, there's some diversity in a role that Denzel's playing. We've got to nominate him. He's always the hero.
He's got to get it. But Ethan Hawke was nominated for Best Supporting. So to me, it's like if the actor playing Gillespie was nominated for Best Actor, and again, like I don't have my phone near me, but it's like if Sidney was to be nominated because he wasn't, what would he have been nominated for? Would it have been Best Actor next to this man, or would it have been Best Supporting?
He actually was nominated for Best Actor for the Golden Globe and for the BAFTA.
But not for Oscars.
But not the
Was
Academy
he
Award.
really?
He was nominated
Fascinating.
6 times for the Golden Globe, 6 times for the BAFTA, 2 times for the Academy.
And to me, it's like this podcast is like we say like a black leading man in a studio movie. And the thing is the fact that whether Sidney's leading is a question, to me makes it like
even though he is the title
he's top
character.
billed and he's top billed. He's top billed.
They made a sequel. They made 2 sequels to this movie
based around him. They call him Mr. Tibbs. It's the name of the sequel.
Yes.
But my thing is the fact that even right now in this room, we're like he split it, or the fact that we're questioning it to me is like I can't give it that.
I hear
But
you.
James gave it a gave it a fist.
I gave it a fist because the movie itself, it is pretty much saying like, look, you guys, accept this person. Like the movie, is the in. Itself,
I hear what you're saying, James. The movie is the cause.
Is the cause.
It is very true.
It's
it is a very much a civil rights film.
It's
you know
like-
what I mean?
You should be accepting this man. Why not? Why not look at this man?
He's
and
more
accept-
qualified to solve this crime and save your town than you are.
Exactly.
Yep. And they need his help.
We've been talking about how his character is not a nuanced human character, but I feel like there are a couple times where he's like it's starting to happen and he's not allowed to.
I think Poitier is the person that inserts the nuance.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you were to read the script, I could see today, if you were to make that movie today, I could see a black actor going, there's not enough character in here for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
He just made necessity is the mother of invention.
Well, he probably didn't have no other option because again, I feel like Jonathan James and I, for instance, I'm gonna say it. I said this to Braylock the other day. Is that usually we're in the comedy community here in New York. If there's a black role and they can't get, and it happens to us all the time. If they can't get like James, it'll come to Braylock. They can't get Braylock, it'll come to me. And I feel like
not always in that order.
Yeah. I mean, whatever order it happens.
It's always in that order.
All right,
I'm always
James.
first.
Okay,
Thank
James.
you.
Okay, James. But I feel like sometimes, especially like if you look at this pilot season, by the time this airs, like a lot of pilots coming out or there are young black guys. A lot revolves around like rapping and selling drugs. And I feel like in this movie, Sidney Poitier probably got the script, and it was like very generic. It was like just a black man dealing with this.
It was a
crazy-
popular book that
It
the
was.
screenplay saw.
It was a
don't get me
popular
wrong.
book, and I love now to read the book.
Yeah,
I
me
would
too.
And
too.
see
It was
what
definitely-
nuance is missing
Yeah.
in the film
Yeah.
that maybe he tried to provide.
Or maybe
Maybe
the
it was
opposite.
Or
Maybe
was it?
I
or
thought
would
he
they-
added it all.
Or did
might
they
have
put
added-
all the nuance in the
I thought
film
he added
that
it
wasn't
all.
in the book?
Because think about everything we talked about with Sidney Poitier. Everything we're talking about is like the looks he gives. That's not in a script. It's not like that's what you do when you embody the character. Like for instance, I think Braylock, you talked about it earlier on when the cop was trying to convince him to stay when at the train station. He's like, you just want to prove. Think about it. You want to prove that you're better than the rest of these white cops. And the thing is, to me, watching Sidney's close up, it's like he's thinking in his head, I do want to do that. But it's also like, that's not the point. It's like, to me, it's like that stuff he added. And it's just crazy because like I feel like he's got a generic script and it's like, I'm going to make this what I can. Like what Eddie did.
Yeah, absolutely. So I give it a white palm, and I feel like, I don't know, I'm really struggling with it. But the reason that I did it, because I definitely agree with both of what Keegan and James said about this film, and like also the fact that Sidney Poitier, here it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing because basically this film was so amazing, and Sidney did such a great job, and like, in not just this film, but all of his whole body of work, that I think accidentally it created what you were talking about.
It
with the
created
blaxploitation.
it created the black
It
superhero.
created the black
Not the-
superhero.
But the
because
thing is-
Sidney, because in people's minds they were like, "That's what I want to be." It's like people were watching this movie and black people were like, "That's awesome," and everybody else was like, "Yes," and it had to. It had to be digestible. It had to, because it's hard because it's like it had to be digestible for where this country was at this time. They needed, you needed, and the thing is, it's funny because you need both. I was talking about this with my girlfriend that you need both MLK and Malcolm X. You
do.
right? You need that violence. To kind of like, and then the black upstanding black citizen where the white people are like, man, we'd much rather deal with him than deal with this guy. And because you have this guy, they're like, great. Well, since clearly a change needs to be made, we'll go over here. So Sidney's character was like, okay, this is how we'd rather deal with it. We know it has to be dealt with. We'd rather deal with this, you know what I mean? Action star kind of almost, right? Yeah. But so this is just like a side like thing, like it's from Wikipedia, but I think it's true. They said like the film earned the nickname Super Spade versus the Rednecks. Super Spade.
Yo.
Which is a term we haven't heard in 40 years.
Right. Because obviously that's a derogatory term, but but it was just like, oh, it's like the super negro, it's the superhero black man, and people idolize that, and white people idolize that.
Yeah.
They so much so that it wasn't like they were like, great, we'll go see Shaft.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
It's what I said about Beverly Hills Cop of like Beverly Hills Cop.
Right, that's why
on its own is
yes.
like, oh wow, great. There's this black man, but it's not necessarily that he's black. It's like this, it's this crossover kind of a movie. But then it spawned this sea of movies that was like the black cop and the.
I just want to be clear, by the way, it's not Sidney's. Has nothing to do with Sidney. It has to do with. It just has to do with what had to happen, and then because Hollywood was like, great. That's all it needs to be.
That's my point.
Yes,
is that at that time that's what needed to happen in the in our cinematic evolution.
Exactly.
That's what was happening, and that's what needed to happen. But the problem is, we just like you said, Gerard. It's so simple. It's like we just want to be seen as humans. And so what happens is we're not superheroes.
Right.
But I think what happened is in the '60s, after it's almost like we had spent. From the 18th century, the late 17th century. The late 17th century to the 1960s.
Yes.
We were...
I say 90s. I would say to the 1990s.
1990s?
But 60s definitely.
Okay, well, so
I would say
1990s. Okay.
1990s.
We were, and I'm trivializing, I'm trivializing, I'm saying this on purpose, I'm trivializing the experience to make an example, an analogical...
Antidote?
Analogical?
No. I'm not that
analogy to make a broad analogy.
Yes.
Okay, so from the late 17th century to the 1990s, we were freshmen in high school, and they were beating on us and beating on us and beating on us. Fuck you, freshmen. Fuck you, freshmen.
Right.
And it wasn't until the mid-90s that we got to be sophomores. And what do sophomores do? Sophomores act like superheroes.
Right.
Yeah.
And pick on the freshmen.
Wow,
now, there were no
analogy.
freshmen, right? Because but the thing is, we did something that freshmen never had to do. It wasn't 4 years, man. It was 404 years.
Damn.
And so we had to make ourselves superheroes because sophomores see
so
juniors and seniors as superheroes, and sophomores get to be superheroes too. And I think we almost emotionally,
Right.
from a point of emotional logic,
Right.
we had to do that.
Right.
That's why in Living Color, in the television show In Living
Yeah.
Color, which is one of my favorite TV shows,
Incredible.
we had to be in a place where we're like, black people are cool, and we're cooler than white people,
Right. Yeah.
And we always have been. We've always been more creative, and we've always been more figurative, and we've always been more colorful.
Uh-huh.
And so we started to exert ourselves in that way.
Right.
And that's why I use Pursuit of Happiness as a benchmark movie. We're like, that's just a movie about a guy who's trying to save his kid.
Right.
That's it, man.
And they put a black
Universal.
man in it.
Exactly.
That's the next step.
And
that's what Jordan and I are trying to do.
To me,
that's the next step.
Exactly. That
To
is
just
the cause.
treat us like
to me,
we were
that is the
already
cause.
superheroes. Now just treat us like humans.
Just regular
How has
human
that
beings.
been though? Because I feel like I bring this up because again, we're here in the comedy community in New York, and I feel like it's that thing of
me and Braylock happened to be on the same team, which I love.
Right.
But I feel like sometimes before I met the rest of, James, Bray, Astronomy Club, it was this thing of like, I was the only black dude I ever met in a class doing improv, or even on stage. So for instance, if I would talk to you guys like how I normally talk, it became the game of a scene. And people don't know the game of a scene. That becomes the funny thing of the scene. Whereas like, that's not me being funny, that's just how I talk.
Oh, goodness, yes.
So it's like, that's just how I talk. So my curiosity is, because clearly you're at a different level than we are. Like, do you ever feel like, just what are your experiences just when it comes to like, you just did a film, do you have to balance out how, it's weird. Do you ever have to like question how black you can be?
Well, the thing is, it's what you're talking about is what the film's about. See, Jordan wrote this film, and it's brilliant. And the thing is, all the film is, if you take complete race out of it, let's say every human being in the world, all 7 billion of us are purple. All 7 billion of us are purple. We're all purple. If everybody on Earth is purple, then this movie is about a guy who goes through a horrible breakup, and then what he wants, and then a kitten shows up on his doorstep, and that kitten replaces his girlfriend, right? And then the kitten gets stolen, and he and his cousin have to go find the kitten. That's what the movie's about.
That's very interesting.
That's what the movie's about. Everybody's purple. Yeah. Everybody's purple, right?
Right.
And then there are some purple people who are dealing with nefarious situations and illicit contraband, and they for some reason have the kitten. Us two purple people who grew up privileged have to go in that world if we want to get the kitten back. So the people who are purple, who are lower class, speak in a particular way. We don't speak in that way. But if we want to get the kitten back, we better start speaking that way to make them think we're one of them. To infiltrate and get the kitten back. Right?
Yep.
So that's what we do. If there was no race and there was only culture and class, that's what our movie Keanu's about. Right?
Yeah.
But there is culture.
Exactly.
And there is race. And there is context. And that's why I think our movie's going to make a lot of money. None of it should matter. But humans make it matter.
Right. Yeah.
Because when we were cavemen, we had to categorize shit, eat the green stuff, don't eat the brown stuff, blah, blah, blah. And we've been doing it ever since.
Yep.
I know it sounds cryptic. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense.
Think,
but that's my question, because, like, again, we just do the same thing about, like...
I'm not even... I kind of went off on a tangent. I didn't answer. What I'm saying is that's the situation, is that Jordan just wrote a caper.
Right.
There's the jewel. The jewel's a kitten in this case. We got to do everything in our power to get the jewel back. We just happen to be two upper middle class black guys who were raised in quote unquote white society.
Right.
And we have to go into quote unquote black society to get the kitten back. So the movie is about how black we are in any given moment.
Right.
Yeah.
The movie's about that. But my partner is so goddamn brilliant, he found a way to just infuse it inside of a caper.
That's
so
great.
we never talk about it.
Yeah.
Right.
We just do it.
Right.
Yeah.
There's like 3 lines in the whole movie where we talk about it.
That's great.
And then the next 80 minutes, we just do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Show, don't tell.
That's the cause, baby. That's the cause.
Yeah, I can't even... John, I want to give Jonathan Braylock a shout out right now, because I feel like Jonathan Braylock just did some... This episode is so crazy to me. It's like Jonathan Braylock got us a guest that we never thought we would get. And Keegan, I don't keep telling you to guess. But it's like, it's crazy.
Thank you for coming.
It's only because it's a thing of like, Jonathan Braylock was like, hey, Keegan's in town. I'm going to get Keegan on our show. And thing is, 2 days later, he's like, hey, Keegan's going to do our show. And I was like, dude, you lost. I'm like, who are you talking to? I literally, and my mind got mad. Like, who are you talking to? Like, who you talking to? Don't tell me no. Like, who you talking to, bro? And the fact that, like, this is like, because we talk about this all the time. And it's like, to me, it's great because now I feel like we've had like a rich conversation. Just
This is great.
Like, it was just like rich, not all jokes like we sometimes throw in. You know what I'm saying?
But
Even though
hopefully
James
we're
brought up Hancock.
But yeah, thank you for...
Hancock.
Thank you.
goddamn.
What, James? Did you have some
No,
Hancock
I was
comments?
no, it was not connected to Hancock.
So real quick, let's just close it up. We're gonna do some plugs. I think we will hopefully. Do you know when the last
I
episode?
believe it's September 9th.
So
I
September
think,
9th.
I think we have 4 more weeks.
Right.
Cool.
Cool. So
Check
you're
that
living-
out.
If you're living under a rock,
You know what Key and Peele is.
Key and Peele.
To be completely selfish, the big thing right now is that we just want to make sure the Television Academy understands that everything you nominated us for this year was from last season.
From last season.
Don't forget about us next season.
Exactly.
Don't
By the way,
forget
also
about us next season.
congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Emmy,
Yeah.
Congratulations.
We're talking to Emmy nominated.
I'm nominated.
We didn't talk about that.
Emmy nominated.
nominated. And such congratulations. And
Thank
it's
you
such
so
a
much.
big.
Thank you.
Honestly, it's so funny too because I didn't even think about it. I've loved Key and Peele since season 1, but also, here's the thing. I do have to say this. I'm upset with you guys. I'm very mad at you guys.
Oh, he talks about.
I'm
you're
very
not
mad
the
at you
only
guys.
one. He's so
You're
mad.
not the only
He's
one.
so mad. You gotta listen though.
Because I'm mixed.
He talk about this all the time.
Like and I understand. I'm sure other people are too. But I'm mixed. Me and my friend Rami were doing sketch comedy at the we were coming up.
He's so
and
mad.
we were I swear to God, there are certain sketches that like the freaking Liam Neeson sketch. I was like, that's like I do sketches like that. That's what I do. And I saw Key and Peele. This is before it was pop. This was before whatever. I sound like a guy, like a little high school.
you can
kid.
be that guy. Go
But
ahead.
it was before it was popular. And I was like, I showed it to Rami, and we were both like, well, we're not
got
creating
us.
a sketch show. And that's not to say we don't have aspirations or we're going to do other things, but it was like there was something about there was a need. There was like a need that was fueling us to be like, we want to create a sketch show that was like multiracial. But we also just get to be funny. It's not always about race, but it can come in when we want. And I saw Key and Peele, and I was like, there it is.
I mean,
there it is.
I'm just
I'm going
happy
to do
it
something else
I'm
now.
just happy it exists because I mean, like I feel for instance, this episode we'll play later, but this week you guys did an Outcast sketch and you
Yes.
played Andre 3000.
Yes.
And I grew up going to Atlanta, and it's like I remember the transition from Andre 3000 went from being like super hood to like
This weird artist.
artsy dude.
Because
I
you know
remember
what?
it.
He became famous, and then he was given permission to be who he really
Whoever
was.
he wanted to
To
be.
be who he
Whoever
really
he wanted.
was, which is just an artist.
Yes.
And the thing to me is like what you guys did in that sketch to me is the kids, and you guys have a white audience. What you guys did is the kids at UCB, the kids that like study comedy, you forced them to look up Outkast.
Correct.
You forced them to figure out. I don't get this
Which is
sketch.
what black people-
RECT.
Yeah, look out. They had to go figure out. I don't get it. Why? Like, what makes this weird?
But that's what and what people need to understand is that that's what black people have to do all the time.
It
right?
is.
We have to do that for white culture. Where if you grow up, even if you grow up in a white suburb or town, if you have a black family, there's a certain culture that you have, and then you go and you look at and you're looking at like touchstone things, and you're like, I don't understand that, and we have to figure out what it is. So
yeah.
there is a trend, and this happens with women too, right? So like. Women and other minorities, not just black people, but I'm just like when you are in a minority or an oppressed person of any kind, you have to start to assimilate the culture of somebody else, and you learn like this empathy. We're getting real deep.
No.
Man, this is supposed to be the end of the episode. We're getting college lessons up in here.
All
All right,
I
fine.
feel like you learn because I feel like because I grew up in a not so beautiful area, and I feel like I was taught from the very beginning that you had to learn 2 languages. I would never get my uncle. Uncle, if you listen to this podcast, my uncle taught me 2 languages. My uncle was very well off, and he was like, you have to learn how to talk to people around the way.
Yeah.
You gotta learn how to talk to people in the office. And it was like you gotta learn 2 different languages, and you gotta build that gap. And I feel like that is,
All right, cool. So
Plugs.
Key and Peele.
Few more weeks.
Series
Yeah, I
finale.
think we have like a
Series finale.
series finale.
Series finale.
Finale.
And then please watch the Primetime Emmys on September 20th.
Yes.
Get that
And
Emmy.
We'll see how we're
My
doing.
God,
Well, the
that would
show is
be-
nominated for 8
And the
Emmys.
show is nominated.
I hope we can win 1
And this
out
is
of
the
8.
first time that the show is nominated.
Which is-
best for. Oh, it's the first time.
Well, it's the first time this has been a category.
That's right. Yeah.
We were nominated for 1 Emmy
writing.
2 years ago, 3 Emmys last year, and then 8 Emmys this year.
Right.
And so we'll see. We'll see if we can bring 1 home.
Yeah. No, listen.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, to me, that's just crazy. Like
Yeah.
that is
And then in the movie, you said it's coming out in April.
Like in April, late April.
Great.
Yeah.
Keanu.
It's called Keanu.
Keanu.
And guys, this has been such a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Man, thanks for
I'm
coming,
just so
man.
happy that this could
And
happen.
Twitter
I'm at Keegan M. Key.
at Keegan M. Key.
At Keegan M.
Yes,
Key.
follow him on Twitter.
And and I just I think let's keep trying to crack this nut.
Yeah, I like it.
What is it? What do we think? And I think that you guys, I'm not trying to be an old guy who's like telling you, here's what you should do, but like try to codify patterns if you can find them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that will be, which is I think is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Is going, what is it that makes? What are the ingredients that make
Exactly.
those work and these not work? And how can we bust up the whole system and make it work for everybody?
To end, I want all of us. I want one by one, all of us to say they call me Mr. Tibbs. Is that cool?
James, go first.
cool.
You got it. You
Absolutely.
James practiced this at the house.
We'll end with Keegan.
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
That was good.
Thank you.
They call me. I can't do it. They call me Mr. Tibbs.
Gerard is getting ready for it. He is winding up.
Yo, Gerard just went me.
Mini mumbling mice.
He's doing stretches in the corner.
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
That's a deep baritone on that one. I like that. That's a new variation.
Keegan closes out.
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
That was you won.
Black Man Can't Jump in Hollywood. Peace. We see you guys next
Thank you.
week. That was amazing.
Yes, it was.
Yes. And we forgot to do our plugs because we were just kind of in awe.
Because Keegan was just chilling with us.
He was chilling with us. It was cool.
My jaw was dropped.
So real quick, we'll do our own plugs. For me, johnbraylock.com, Jon Braylock, BRAYLOCK.com, at John Braylock on Twitter and Instagram. Follow me, tweet at me, whatever. Check out my shows there. And that's pretty much all I got to plug. I got some new videos up, so check them out.
Yeah, man, y'all know I don't be doing no social media like that. But I do want to plug something, though.
What?
James Braylock, myself and the other members of Astronomy Club are putting up a show at the Upright Citizen Brigade, UCB Chelsea, on September 24th. We're putting up a sketch show, or our attempt to get a sketch show, Thursday at 6:30. It's called Astronomy Club Presents. We take you through a journey through Black history. So come learn about how stuff got where it is now.
It's a sketch show.
No, it is completely.
It is a
no.
There's
lessons.
less learning and
it
much
is
more
100%
blatant comedy.
No, I think-
accurate.
I think there's a lot of accurate stuff.
100%
you're right. Yeah.
accurate. Astronomy Club presents 100% accuracy.
So
Black history.
yeah, if you're in New York, September 24th, 6:30, James.
Yes. Okay. James Third Comedy on all social media platforms, especially.com. 3RD.
So it's not James the Third.
It's not James. Stop saying it. It's James Third Comedy. Third is 3RD. The Adventures of Jamel, episode 3, premiered in LA. Has already premiered in LA, and it should be online by now.
Cool.
www.gojamelgo.com.
That's a web series.
That's the web series.
Oh,
You're starring in.
that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
and if anyone's
man.
going to be in Vermont on sorry,
What's happening over
sorry,
here?
I just remember. I have a pilot in the International Television Festival, Vermont, the 25th through the 27th.
Oh,
come hang
congratulations.
out. Thank you, man. It's pretty cool. Come hang out.
When's
I think I'm
that?
the only black guy.
When is it though?
Yes,
It's,
you will.
it's September 25th through the 27th.
Oh, cool.
Great.
So if you're up there in
So you gonna-
Vermont,
great.
hang out.
And that's it. Oh, and at Black Man Podcast, follow us and tweet at us and Keegan on the same tweet.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can
Tweet
get some
at us
followers up.
and Keegan.
Do it.
Get a followers up.
Rate and review us on iTunes. All right, we're out. We'll see you guys. Oh, and next week, goodness
Come on,
gracious.
This
I'm
is-
sorry.
this is
I
insane.
tell you, I was blown away by the episode we just did.
Braylock is supposed to guide
I know.
the,
I was
the,
just
the
we had
podcast.
goodness. Can you believe that this
No,
episode
I don't.
just happened?
I don't at all.
Okay, so it was amazing. Next week it'll be back to the three of us again, and we're gonna do the first Denzel Washington film that we are reviewing.
He won Best Actor.
Yes.
Yo, you know we talking about Training Day.
Training Day, baby.
Training Day.
King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
All right, go watch it.
23-hour
again.
lockdown.
Denzel Washington. We're going to get into it next week. We'll see y'all then. Peace.
That was a HeadGum podcast.